More than 6 million people in the US are late on their mortgage payments according to Deeds.com. With over 85 million mortgages, that means about 7% of mortgages are late. The reasons vary, but let's take a look at this situation. Can't afford my mortgage. What can I do? First-time homeowner since 2022. Was making $200,000 before I was laid off. Now we're making $100,000. Conventional loan, $2,400 monthly mortgage payment. My wife and I racked up a decent amount of debt to stay afloat, and our credit card bills take up a lot of our income, and I can no longer afford the mortgage. When a couple both work and one loses their income, it goes without saying that there are serious potential problems. In this case, the couple's household income has been cut in half, which is scary. But it looks like something else is going on here. A sudden loss of income is always difficult, but it becomes even more dangerous when a household is already stretched thin. It's one thing to experience a drop in income when you have savings, minimal debt, and a conservative budget, but it's entirely different when your finances are already operating at their limit. Losing half the household income in that situation doesn't just tighten things, it can unravel everything. Paying a $2,400 mortgage on a $100,000 income should be doable if debt and spending levels are reasonable. The mortgage isn't your problem. You are spending like you make $200,000. That's exactly right. They should be able to make those housing payments with what they're currently bringing in. But it sounds like there's a lot of other debt and irresponsible spending here. $200,000 isn't what it used to be, but their mortgage isn't very big either. They should have been in a pretty comfortable spot, meaning little to no debt before the layoff. Let's assume they pay roughly 20% towards income tax. It's impossible to determine exactly how much they're paying because there are millions of variables, but just use 20% as an estimate for the sake of simplicity. That's $160,000 annually with both of them working, or over $13,000 per month take home. Now with one income, they'd still be bringing in about $80,000 annually, or about $6,700 per month. You can see how that would be tight on one income. But on two? $100,000 in a $2,400 mortgage? That's easily manageable on that income. The mortgage alone should be doable on that income, but not with other debt, especially if they're both paying on student loans, which they probably are. If they're now only taking home $6,700 per month, then paying the mortgage, that's $4,300 left, which is great with no other debt. Add student loans or a couple of car loans into the mix, in what sounds like some poor spending choices, and you can easily see why they're going under. It's not that the mortgage is unaffordable on its own, it's that everything else stacked on top of it has turned the situation upside down. It's so easy for your lifestyle to creep up unless you're constantly trying to keep things minimal. You think, what's another $500 per month when you're looking at trading in your car, especially if your income feels solid at the time. That one choice seems harmless. After all, $500 spread across the month doesn't seem like much, especially if you convince yourself it's going towards something practical or deserved. But then it happens again. Maybe it's a second car or a slightly more expensive apartment, or a vacation you put on credit cards with the promise to pay it off later. One by one, these little upgrades stack on top of each other, and because they're added slowly, you don't really feel the weight of it right away. It's like boiling a frog. You don't notice the danger until you're in too deep. Over time, what was once a manageable budget becomes bloated and fragile. Then, all it takes is one disruption, like a job loss or a medical bill, for the whole system to come crashing down. My husband makes less than $70,000 as a public educator, and our mortgage is $2,000 per month. We live comfortably despite that because we're frugal and grew up poor. It sounds like serious financial discipline is ingrained here. $70,000 isn't much after taxes, but if you're used to keeping a careful eye on all expenses, it's definitely doable. Plus, people who grew up poor often have a scarcity mindset. They probably listen to their parents stress about money, wondering if they could put food on the table or pay the rent that month, which scared them into a saving mindset. That kind of upbringing shapes how you view every dollar. You don't just spend because you can, you spend because you must. And when you do spend, you're calculating the trade-off. You know the difference between needs and wants because you had to make that distinction every day growing up. So when a household like this says they're living comfortably on a modest income and a $2,000 mortgage, it's because they've likely prioritized stability over lifestyle upgrade. They don't assume a raise means a newer car or a bigger home. They see it as a chance to breathe easier, build a cushion, or just not worry as much. That's a mindset many higher income earners never develop, and it's why some people making half as much end up doing twice as well financially. Stop paying your credit cards and pay your mortgage no matter what. The mortgage is secured by your home and credit cards are unsecured debt. Credit card companies will definitely come after you if you stop paying, and credit's going to take a hit, but at least they're not going to show up and take your house. That's the big difference. The mortgage has to come first because losing your home is a much bigger problem than dealing with collections. They bought in 2022, and the poster revealed that they have about $60,000 in equity, which will be gone. If they get foreclosed on, they'll need to find a new place to live. And with rent prices where they are now, it's not like they're going to suddenly save money by renting. In a lot of areas, renting something decent could actually cost more than the mortgage they're currently struggling with. Plus, having a foreclosure on your record can make it tough to rent at all. And yeah, the foreclosure process takes a few months, usually around 4 before the bank really starts moving, but that's plenty of time to get things back on track here. Does your wife have any income? Are you able to get a second job? No, just my income. I can try to get a second job if that's the only option. There's two options here, either reduce monthly expenses or increase income. And in a bind like this, it's probably a good idea to do both. It sounds like even though the husband was laid off, he's still bringing in $100,000. The wife doesn't work, but maybe she could bring in a little income to prevent losing the house. It doesn't have to be a lot of money. Right now, anything is better than nothing. Even if she picks up an entry-level, part-time job, it's still income, and every little bit helps when you're trying to stabilize. And a second job isn't a bad idea either. It doesn't have to be forever. If the husband picks up something in the evenings or weekends, retail, delivery, whatever, it could just be enough to bridge the gap. It doesn't sound like it's going to take long to get back onto solid footing if both of them are willing to lean in temporarily. A lot of people get hung up on pride. It's tough to go from a well-paying or professional job to working something like fast food, retail, or rideshare. People feel like they've failed or like it's beneath them. But here's the truth. Pride doesn't pay the bills. Taking responsibility does. There's nothing wrong with working an entry-level job, and it's much better than losing everything. There is no easy path. Bankruptcy seems like an option. That actually seems like the worst option here. Yeah, they'd wipe out their credit card debt, but at what cost? They'd be putting their home at risk, wrecking their credit for years, and honestly, they're not even that far gone. It feels heavy right now, sure, but this situation is still fixable. There are a lot of not-so-difficult options here. Just getting one small income could be enough to stabilize things temporarily. The immediate goal isn't to fix everything overnight, it's just to stop things from getting worse. They just need to bring in a little something extra while cutting back to a reasonable level. Bankruptcy should be the absolute last resort. That's the parachute when the plane's already on fire and spiraling down. They haven't missed mortgage payments yet, there's no foreclosure, they still have options. Once you go through bankruptcy, it's not just your debt that disappears, it's your flexibility. Buying a car, renting a place, even getting certain jobs becomes harder. This really isn't that bad of a situation. Basically, they were earning $200,000 and now they're falling behind because their income was cut in half. Now they've got some credit card debt, but aside from that and what we can assume is some overspending habits, it sounds like they'll be fine if they can modestly boost their income until they can get back to that $200,000 level. The main issue is that their household income got cut in half. That's what really pushed them into the red. If they stop relying on credit and start building up some savings and pay off consumer debt, they could be in a much stronger financial position in not much time, and it doesn't sound like they're too far off.